welcome into the show, Mr. Dan Geltrude. I've heard actuarial accountants tell me this all the time. The best time to be alive, not a lot of wars, better medicine, better standard of living is right here and right now. And when it comes to being a millionaire, it looks as though there's a lot of folks that are starting to enter that club.
Yeah, they really are. And, you know, Scott, from where I am in the New York City metropolitan area, you know, if you're a millionaire, I don't mean to sound like, I don't know what, arrogant about this, but it's like you're middle class. And why is that? Well, there's a huge inflationary factor here. Most people, as you alluded to, have their net worth in their homes. And in so many places around the country, you've had a skyrocketing value of real estate. That's great. But you know what? It doesn't make you liquid at all. So if you want access to cash, now get this, people are going to those home equity lines of credit, right? Well, those things are like at 8%. So the real problem here is, on paper, yes, I'm a millionaire. How much cash do I actually have to be able to buy stuff in this inflationary period? Not so much.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. I mean, I also think that another downside effect, Dan, as you mentioned it, right? We've seen this skyrocketing asset prices because of that inflationary effect. We saw the government pour, $8, $9, $10 trillion into the economy to fight COVID and the likes. Now that that's happened, and now that we have, say, 1 in 5 people or 20% out there are millionaires, and whether they can access their cash or not, I feel now for the next batch of millionaires, it's going to be hard to get there because most of the folks, the 1 out of 5 or the 20%, got there because of what we saw happen as far as inflation. Then the next group behind it is probably not going to have that inflationary force, or at least a money supply number that's going to be big enough to boost their asset prices to put them in that category. So I think maybe the train might have left the station for the next batch of people.
Oh, you're 100% right about that, Scott, because, you know, when you talk about all these young people that have just started their career or even some years into their career and they're loaded up with college debt, they have virtually no chance of even getting into the real estate game to be able to experience that growth. And when you talk about, well, you better be saving for retirement, there we go again. So you want to maximize how much you're putting away for those golden years, but guess what? Another problem. You can't touch it. So yes, those that are already, per se, in our age bracket, I think we're Generation X. Yeah, we timed it right, or at least our parents did for us. But for everybody else after us, well, you know what? They have some significant financial challenges because inflation, taxes, interest rates have really eroded away from that buying power that we had when we were their age.
Yeah, there's been a lot written about that. There's a ton of research out there about how there's some, not anxiety, but maybe the younger generation don't like the baby boomers or Gen X right behind them because they feel like they got all the benefit of a roaring economy from the 1950s, post World War II on forward. And suddenly that train, again, like I said, has left the station and things have stopped for them. And with that market taking off like it has, we have Craig Bolanos on this show every week, and he talks about the biggest impediment, and you just nailed it, for young folks to get on that housing ladder is their student loan debt. He says he sees it time and time again where that gets in that's the biggest thing that gets in the way. And then on top of it, you're right, the price of the house is kind of out. I mean, we see all these different things written about what we're going to do about getting folks on that housing ladder, getting those house prices to come into something that's going to be reasonable, and then finally see if these kids can make enough money to put enough away for retirement. I mean, it just does kind of feel like they kind of have a point that it seems as though a lot has been stacked against them.
It really has. But you know what? There is a group of young people that fall into that. But there is some good news where the generation younger than them, and I'm talking about those kids right now that are in high school, do the smart thing. You gotta manage your college education, right? Scholarships, whether it's academic and sports, yeah, that's great. But most of us don't fall into that. So you have to manage how you get educated. So there's nothing wrong with community colleges to start off with, right? Get that education halfway through at a lower price, and then go to a state school. Commute to a state school. That's how you manage your education costs, because when you start to dig that hole, it's a really deep hole to get out of once you start working. And I don't want to get into a new topic, but when we start to talk about what jobs are looking like going forward with AI, and it's really difficult for internships and that first job out of school, you know, there's a lot to manage here, and the last thing you want to do is start off deep in debt, Scott.
100%, and I hopefully a few of them are watching and they get the clip of this show, because you're exactly right, and Craig Bolanos is exactly right. It's going to be hard for them. It's not undoable, you know. It's not like they can't do it, but you definitely have to step on the right lily pads and plan ahead, because you're not going to, you know, it's not going to all be luck. You got to do some planning. All right, really appreciate you coming on the show, Dan. Great to have you start our week with us. Dan Geltrude, America's accountant, Nutley, New Jersey. Thanks for being on the show. All right, let's